go ahead and start?
Yeah.
All right. Could you say and spell your name for us real quick?
My name is spelled Bobby Walton.
We'll talk about what did your parents do? How did they get to Oklahoma?
My parents was in Oklahoma as far as I remember. Looking back at history, I guess my grandfather was from Texas, but my parents been in Oklahoma probably in the 1800s.
And were your parents always located in Enid?
No, we lived. I was born in Hobart, Oklahoma, in 1938. We moved from Hobart, Oklahoma, to Newkirk, Oklahoma, and we lived in Newkirk, Oklahoma until I was in the 7th grade, which was 1950. Then we moved to Ponca City, Oklahoma, and that's where I graduated from. Then that's where my mom died, and that's where she's buried.
Well, when did you start playing sports? How early in your life did you?
I started playing baseball in 1946, in 1949 in Newkirk, Oklahoma. I was first to break the color barrier along with a friend of mine named Harold Love. He was black also. We moved to Ponca City in 1950 to 1954, and I was first to break the color barrier in the Ponca City local baseball league. In 1954, 1955, still lived in Ponca City, but I was first to break the color barrier in the Oklahoma American Legion, which it hadn't been documented. 55, 57, I was first to break the color barrier at Ponca City High School, baseball. We integrated there in 54, 55. 55 and 56, 56, 57, and on. 1980 to 2000, I was the first and only black international FILA official from Oklahoma. That's Federation of International Association. That's the USA Wrestling. And 2005, I was the first and only black wrestling official to be inducted into the National Wrestling Hall of Fame from Oklahoma.
Did you wrestle as a kid?
At Ponca City High School in 1957, I went out for the wrestling team, but I decided I didn't want to pull the weight, so I quit. I got back into wrestling in the year of probably 1979. My son got into it, and I watched him for a couple of years, and then rather than just sitting in the stands watching, I decided to get into officiating. So I got into officiating, and I officiated until probably
2006. You might have officiated some of my Little League matches. I was doing it about that time, 78, 79, 88. Yeah. So going back to playing baseball, segregation, were you treated differently by the players, or was it mainly the folks, the folks in charge of the city, or the restaurateurs? Or
let me start with Newkirk, Oklahoma. Newkirk, Oklahoma, one afternoon, Harold Love and I, which is black, we had been associated with some younger white guys, but they wanted us, at that time we were segregated. We lived on one side of the track, and they lived on the other side. So they wanted us to come across the track and play baseball with them in the Newkirk High School parking lot. So Harold and I went over there and we played baseball with them that day, and everything was opie-dopey until Harold Love hit a ball so far and so long it busted out Newkirk High School window. And at that time we broke up and we started running home, because no one wanted to be responsible for that. So one of the players that we were playing with that day went home and told his dad about the situation. So whenever the league started, the citywide league started the next year, all the kids there in Newkirk wanted Harold and me to play baseball with them, which during that time it was segregated. But after they talked to their fathers had meetings and how government worked, politics. But next thing you know, well, they put Harold Love on one team and they put me on another team. And that's where my baseball career started there in Newkirk, which it was very exciting. I become a pitcher, and I was the top-notch pitcher there in Newkirk at the time. But in 1950, my mom decided to move to Ponca City, and at that time, Ponca City was integrated. No blacks played in the mixed league. So I guess when that spring, I wanted to play, and I walked probably about 5 miles to the ballpark where they practice, and I talked to one of the coaches out there and told him I wanted to play baseball. And he said, "Son," he said, "I'm sorry, but there's no blacks in this league. We haven't integrated yet." And he said, "By the way," he said, "what position you play?" I said, "I'm a pitcher." So he said, "Get up on the mound. Let me see what you have." So I got up on the mound, and he saw how hard I could throw the ball, and the form that I had. And he said, let me tell you, come back in a couple of days," he said, "and I'll meet with the organization and see if we can get you in." That was the American, not the American Legion, but the different type of organizations they had that sponsored those teams. So I come back a couple of days later, and he said, well, they agreed to let you play, and that's how the first integrated the Ponca City basic league. But after that, I've become pretty good, and this is where the American Legion part come in. They when I become old enough, they always picked the American Legion All-Star team, and I was one of the top baseball players there in Ponca City, so I was selected for the American Legion baseball team. And this was in '54, and they had me to register during that time, so I could play in the tournament, American Legion tournament there at Enid, Oklahoma. So I registered and got to go to the state tournament with them, and that was in '54. So we got to Enid, and we went to the restaurant there, and they said they told the team that the team could eat in the front of the restaurant, but I had to eat in the kitchen with the cook. So, that was fine that year. So we played that year and had a pretty good year at the tournament. Next year, the team, American Legion team, qualified to go back to the state, but they informed the team that they could come, but Bobby Walton, which was me, wouldn't be able to participate because of segregation. So our American Legion team informed them that I had played the year before there, and they said no, he didn't. So that year, the team said, well, if Bobby can't come and be part of our team, the team would not come. So this is where we are now.
Go ahead.
Once they made the decision that I couldn't play, I guess during that time they expunged all the records that I even played that year.
Was the state tournament in the same place both years?
Both years. I think it's still in Enid,
Okay.
Oklahoma.
So the other players, it seems to me that your team got along really well. And
as far as the team and the coaches in Newkirk, they just really grasped me. We'll go back to Newkirk. Even in Newkirk, we were 12 miles from the Kansas border, but Oklahoma was segregated during that time, and the blacks couldn't go in front of drugstores. It was only 2 grocery stores that they would let you go in to shop, and that was secondary foods and whatever they had. But as far as the coach just he loved me like a son. The players, we was like brothers with brothers, because they just all become part of me and I become part of them. So during that time, my catcher was his name was Victor Andrews. His parents owned a drugstore. It was 2 drugstores in Newkirk. They owned one of the drugstores, and they let me come in the drugstore, and I was able to drink malts out of a glass, And during that time, if you were black, you went in, you got your drinks in a cup, a paper cup, and went back out to drink it. But by me being a baseball player and being on Vic's team, they let me come in and I drank malts out of a glass, played pinball machines. I just become part of the community. It was sort of integrating the area. And the same in Ponca City. Ponca City was segregated. You couldn't go in front of the restaurants. You couldn't. There were certain stores you could go into. Movies. You had to sit in the balcony. It was pretty segregated there also during the time I first moved there. But once I started playing ball, the coaches, they treated me like a son, and the players, it was like brothers again there. I mean, it was like no one saw skin color. It was your personality that they fell in love with. Matter of fact, Wesley Jordan became my best friend there, and his dad took me all over Oklahoma along with Wesley when we traveled, because I didn't have a dad at the time, and my mom worked from 6 in the morning till 7 in the evening. So I was kind of left on my own, but Wesley Jordan's dad just kind of took me in like his son.
Did you do, especially the American Legion, did you do much traveling with the team? Did y'all travel around Oklahoma, or was it just for the state tournament?
Well, I think we had to travel for the divisional titles, but as far as doing a lot of traveling, no, we didn't have to.
Okay.
But in the article here, like we didn't even get to go to the participate in the divisional because the color barrier.
Well, when you traveled with either the team or with your friend and his dad, was the places in Oklahoma you traveled, were they all similar, or was there any differences in communities when you traveled around in regards to segregation?
Now, during the time when I was playing organized league, I remember us traveling like to Pawnee, Oklahoma. Perry, but those are about the only two places that I remember us traveling to, other than when we went to Enid to the state tournament.
Did you play any college ball? What did you do after you graduated?
No, I didn't play any college ball because I had been contacted about the Chicago Cubs when I was between my freshman year and sophomore year, and they had told me that once I graduated, I would be getting a contract with the Cubs. But at my sophomore year, I was still in the segregated school, which was Attucks High School, and I was playing football. Well, we were practicing, and we was hitting this standing block and dummy, and I come down, I hit dummy right at the top, and then come down on my shoulder and separated my shoulder. And the coach that I had didn't believe that I was hurt. So he didn't take me to the doctor or get it checked out, anything. And I continued playing football that year with a separated shoulder. And that summer, when I got ready to play baseball, I discovered that I couldn't throw no more than 3 innings, and then my arm just went dead. So that eliminated me from getting a contract with the Cubs. And during that time, see, it wasn't very many colleges that was recruiting blacks. That was, I remember that was in like 56, 57. So I don't know whether I would have been able to get a scholarship or not. But what happened after my shoulder was knocked down and I couldn't pitch. Well, I still continued playing at Honk City High School when we integrated. But rather than being a pitcher, I played second base. And I was a pretty good ball player there, but I wasn't good enough to get a scholarship offer or anything. So I basically left baseball alone until in the military I went out for the post team, but they didn't make that. Then later years, after I got out of the military, I played semi-pro baseball in Wichita, Kansas. And I did that for 2 years.
What base were you at when the post team?
I was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky.
My father played on a post team down in South Texas. One of the bases down there.
Oh, did he?
Mm-hmm. Fort Hood, maybe.
Probably, yeah. It was
Fort Bliss.
It's I just went blank. It's right there on the Texas border.
Well, when I went, I got called.
Texas, New Mexico border.
I got called back in the military during the Cuban crisis, and our unit went to Fort Hood, Texas, and during that period of special forces playing softball there.
What did you do after the military? Just come back to Oklahoma?
Come back to Oklahoma. And went to work for Conoco Oil Company, and moved from Oklahoma City to back to Ponca City, and stayed in Ponca City about 2.5 years. Moved to Wichita, and that's Wichita, Kansas, and that's where I played semi-pro. Then we lived in Wichita, I guess, about until 1966, and then got transferred back to Oklahoma City. And I come down here and played sandlot baseball for a couple of years, and then after that, I left baseball alone.
Well, my important question is, when did you start barbecuing? Did you mop or did you dry? How did you smoke your ribs?
That's a good question. When I first started barbecuing, you always see people just put their grill in the backyard and throw the meat on and cook it and fine. Well, that's what I did, and my first ribs come out like fried bacon. So I didn't have very good success there. So I kept trying and got a little better. But the guy come up to me a few years later. You remember what year that was when we wanted me to go into a business with him. Open up a barbecue place or buying one.
97.
Yeah, 97. So, well, I had retired from Prudential in 97. So I said, well, this gives me something to do. So it was a place in Goldsby, Oklahoma, that come open. So I went down there with him and talked to the guy. And the guy, he told us what he wanted, and this guy said, okay, that sounds like a good deal. Well, when it come out time to close the deal, the other guy backed out and left me paying all the money. So my wife and I, Shirley, we went on and we took over the place, and it become pretty successful there for a couple of years. But I learned really. That's when I really learned how to really cook a different meat. Which we had barbecue ribs, we had ham, brisket, Polish sausage, hamburger, half-pound hamburgers. I mean, it was all good. But we had a pretty successful business there.
So when you officiated wrestling, did you start with Little League, and did you move up into high school and others, or did you stay with what levels did you officiate?
Okay, when I started out refereeing for wrestling, my son was a wrestler, and we were going all over the state and all over the United States watching him. But there was coaches all around, saying, "Bobby, why don't you referee?" And finally, one day I just decided, okay, I'll referee. But this was freestyle, and the freestyle, the league, it went from the small kids up through really college age kids. That's starting out. And I stayed in freestyle until I guess it was about 1979, I decided to get into folk style. That's college and high school type. So there, I started out. I really started out with small kids, and then during that year, I did enough freestyle to where I could do the high school, college, also. So I was doing a little bit of all of it during that time. 1980, Stan Abel come up and asked me if I wanted to run the OU, be head official for the OU wrestling program. So I said, well, I never really got that high, but I said I would try it. And I become Oklahoma, OU University's head official. I did all the hiring and ran all their tournaments and stuff until probably 2006.
No, before. That was before we went to the smokehouse.
Yeah.
Probably around.
No, I'm talking about up until.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, doing that too, I refereed the Big 12
Big 8 at the time.
Wrestling tournament twice. I traveled to Nebraska, Missouri, Florida. As far as the folk style was concerned, freestyle, I traveled all over the United States alone. Internationally, I went to Rome, Italy, and Canada. So, but I refereed all ages.
So that's great. Did you do any Junior Olympics or Olympics?
Yes, I was. Matter of fact, I was head official for the Junior Olympic trials. They used to have those. They had the one here in Oklahoma in '89. That was, as far as the freestyle wrestlers, it was trying to qualify for the Olympics. I was the head official for that. I was the head official for the Olympic trials in
Dallas.
In Nebraska.
In Dallas in 2000.
Dallas and Colorado.
So you probably refereed some of our stars like Kenny Monday or John Smith, a lot of those guys.
Yes. All of those guys I refereed. Matter of fact, John Smith graduated the same year I signed, 1983. Kenny Monday was a couple of years ahead of them. Matter of fact, Kenny Monday stayed at our house during the time, years, it was during the time I was refereeing. But yeah, I refereed quite a few of his matches.
That's great. Was there anything else you want to talk about that we didn't talk about?
Well, it was a situation where kind of wanted to talk about the my time growing up. I was born in 1938, and during that period, it was Oklahoma was segregated. And as I grew up, I come to find out that as far as being black, you had ride in the back of the buses. You wasn't able to go and buy clothes in front of dry goods stores. And by us living in Newkirk, Oklahoma, my parents lived 12 miles from the Kansas border, which we was able to go to Arkansas City and go in front of the good grocery stores and buy groceries. We was able to go in to a dry goods store, and I remember the store Newman's up there where we used to buy school clothes and different clothes. My stepfather worked there at the packing house there, but we went 12 miles north into Kansas, and we were able to be in an integrated atmosphere. We went and the move is set in the bottom, but we went 12 miles back to the south, and it was all segregation. But in 1950, moved to Ponca City, and it was quite most places there was segregated. It was now you could go downtown and buy clothes, go in front of places, but you couldn't sit in front of restaurants and eat. Schools was segregated. When I first got there, went to a segregated school, which was Attucks High School, from 1950 to 1954. So, but school year 54 and 55, that's when Oklahoma started the integration program, and transferred from Attucks High School and went to Ponca City. Po High is what we call it, high school. Mm-hmm. But still during that era, we experienced segregation, racism, discrimination, whatever you want to call it. Went into I left Ponca City and come to Oklahoma City after I graduated. Went to work for Coca-Cola Bottling Company. Went in, volunteered for the draft. Went to station Fort Carson in Colorado, and went from there to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Had joined to be a trooper, airborne trooper. Went to Fort Bragg and took my second 8, and that was in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Now you're really talking about segregation there. This is when I was able to experience downtown. They had a slave market that I'd never seen before, I'd never heard of, but that's one of the things that I run across in North Carolina during that period. Anyway, I was there for probably after my when I finished my second 8, left there and went to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And Fort Campbell, Kentucky, half of it's in Kentucky and half of it's in Tennessee. But you found out in that era, there was a lot of segregation. Matter of fact, and we were coming home for Christmas holidays in North Carolina, and it was a friend of mine named L. Ray Sutton. He was white, but we were close. We got to be close like brothers. But I remember it was 3 white guys and 2 black guys that we were all riding together coming in. But we stopped at this truck stop, and they wanted to get some coffee. Well, we walked inside and had our uniforms on, but the guy looked and he said I can serve the whites, but he can't serve the blacks. So everyone walked out of coffee service. So we had this one guy. We had he was black. We had to drop him off in St. Louis. But just before we got to St. Louis, I guess it was about 6 o'clock that morning, we stopped and we were hungry, and they went into this restaurant. And here's the same day, same morning, we got there, and the lady that was our waitress come up and said, I can serve the whites, but I can't serve the blacks. So here we're looking at about 20 hours with no food because of segregation. So we got on into St. Louis, and we dropped this black guy off, and then we drove to Topeka, Kansas, and probably after hours of no heat, and we finally got a chance to eat, and we dropped those other white guys off there. And El Ray and I, we both lived here in Oklahoma. He lived in Sulphur, and I was living in Ponca City at the time. So we drove. He drove me back to Ponca, and he went on. But this is the time that I really experienced a lot of the segregation. But then afterwards, that's when we were on our way. We left North Carolina and went to Tennessee, but that was kind of my basic experience as far as segregation, along with my baseball.
Is in Ponca City, before you left Oklahoma City, were most of the businesses integrated after the schools integrated, or were they still segregated? Most
of the businesses stayed segregated for a while. Even after I left Ponca City after I graduated in '57. But most of the eating places, they were still pretty segregated. Now, as far as the clothing places downtown, you could go and buy. But the movie was segregated. It was still segregated when I left.
How did you, when you got to Oklahoma City, did you experience the same thing?
When I moved to Oklahoma City in '57, you read a lot, and hear a lot now about what they call deep deuce. Mm-hmm. Well, this is where most of all the blacks was concentrated, in the deep deuce. That was 1st Street, 2nd Street, 3rd Street, and it was segregated. But downtown, you could go downtown in Oklahoma City, and you could buy clothes. But as far as the drugstores and things like that, eating places, yes, it was segregated there. They really didn't start integrating until Clara Lupa come in and started running her demonstration, and that was in the '60s. So this is when Oklahoma City started breaking. But up until then, the blacks was mostly concentrated in Deep Deuce. And during that time, when I moved down here, I stayed at I lived at Canton Hotel. That was on 2nd and Walnut. But my aunt worked at what you call a White House Cafe. That was down off in Deep Deuce now, where they are building a lot of places.
Did you see a drastic difference when you came back from the military and how the businesses were operating?
Oklahoma City started expanding for as blacks from the south to the north. When I come back from the military, as far as the black concentration, it started expanding from 3rd Street to 8th Street, and it was that's where the blacks was concentrated mostly during a time after I got out. That was around 60, 61. Then 62, I got married, and I got called back into the military because of the Cuban crisis, and went to Fort Hood, Texas, and was stationed there. A lot of segregation in Texas, a lot of segregation. But when I got out, the black concentration had had expanded to 13th Street, and that's over there where the hospital. It was University Hospital at the time. So, got out in '63, moved back to Ponca City, and went to work for Conoco Oil Company.
62.
And Ponca City was pretty well. They had pretty well integrated quite a bit during that time. Left Ponca City in about 2.5 years and moved to Wichita, Kansas. Then got transferred back to Oklahoma City, and during the time we got transferred back to Oklahoma City, the black concentration had moved from 13th Street all the way out to 54th Street. So that's basically how integration helped and how it expanded. And that was from the year probably 1949 until 1954.
Are you from Oklahoma City?
No, my home's Bristow, Oklahoma.
Bristow.
Bristow. Yeah. I was hoping you'd tell him about when Billy Williams came to Ponca from the South and how he was from Alabama, you know.
Okay.
I have a friend named Billy Williams. Played professional baseball with Chicago Cubs. You probably know who he is.
Probably, I'm not sure.
He played Ernie Banks.
Ernie Banks.
They
He played with them.
Fergie.
Fergie Jenkins. Mm-hmm. They were all on that team. But Billy, my junior year, Billy had signed with the Chicago Cubs, but Ponca City had a D-class professional team there, and Billy come to Ponca City to play, and being from Whistle, Alabama, that's right outside of Mobile. Well, he experienced a lot more segregation than what I had here, but during that time the schools was integrated here, and I associated with a lot of whites because of baseball and being in school with them. But Billy come, and I took him to some of the parties there, and he was very, very afraid, because he never experienced that before. But I got him and I got to be friends during that time. We're still friends, and most people kept up with baseball. They would know who Billy Williams, Chicago Cub.
What was the D-class team of Ponca City called?
Like a farm.
The name of the team, I forget what the name of the team was, but during that time they were foreign club of the Chicago Cubs. Sort of like Oklahoma City here now. We're a foreign team of the Dodgers, Los Angeles Dodgers. Well, they were a foreign team of the Chicago Cubs. And during that time, a lot of the scouts had already recognized me, and they let me go out there and pitch batting practice. Wow. Even as a junior, which my arm wasn't very good at the time, but I went out and pitched batting practice for him.